it's an educational kind of thing as well, when you're educating the brand managers and the CMOs about what these guys are and what they can achieve.
If someone doesn't believe in the product or the brand, or if it is not part of their training routine, then it's a non-starter.
You hang out with that guy for 30 minutes and you'll realize that, he could sell you some stuff.
Let me win the second goal, and then I have all the time in the world to do all these things.
This brand manager asked me, how many players are there in a football team? How many people are there on a field?
Our marketing folks there literally used to say that IPL is the new Diwali.
After he won the gold, our phones did not stop ringing for 3 weeks. And it is a dream for anyone in sales.
It's a lot about building brand love. I think that's where it all comes from.
For every 100 people you reach out to, maybe 10% of that will give you a meeting, and 10% of that will convert.
कि बॉस ये किया है, कौन किया है? ये मिल्खा सिंह. Automatically that connect, right? Because मिल्खा सिंह के बाद एक आदमी जिसने ये किया है is नीरज. Hello everyone, we welcome you to another session of the Playmakers Arena. We've got two guests, one whom I know fairly well and one who I hope to know fairly well going forward. So Samkit and Rajesh are here with us to talk about this very niche vertical within the whole sporting ecosystem, which focuses around marketing and sponsorship sales. We've got two folks who will bring in very different flavors because of their past work experiences. So I hope over the course of the next 40-45 minutes, we'll be able to get a lot of insights out of their own professional experiences, which will help all of you listening in to carve out your own journeys in the sporting ecosystem. Why don't we just start off with a little bit of background on what you guys have done, Samkit and Rajesh. First of all, welcome. Samkit, if you'd like to start off, give us a little flavor on your personal professional journey and what brought you to where you are today.
Sure. So, I started off my career in sport fairly late. I think I started at the age of 28. Prior to that, I had a stint in finance, worked for my father in the jewelry business. That's past. Started off at Koo Sports, where I was building academies. Post that, I joined this company called Sports for All, which is basically into building the whole school sporting ecosystem. After that, I joined JSW. I was a part of the the Olympic sales team, Olympic talent sales team, specifically focusing on talent sales. Did that for about 4 years. Of course, at JSW, it's not just the Olympic thing. You basically are selling everything and anything under the sun. And JSW has they've got about 10 or 11 assets. Back then when I joined, we had 4. So it was quite a ride from the time I joined till the time I left, which was about 6 months before. Yeah, and currently I'm with RPSG. We've got 3 teams right now. We've got Mohan Bagan, India's Asia's oldest football club. We've got Lucknow Super Giants and Durban Super Giants in the SA20. So yeah, I've been on the sales side throughout. A bit of marketing, but not a lot of it. And yeah, that's been my journey.
Got it. Thanks, Samkit.
Short and sweet.
Well, short, sweet, and impactful, I'd say. Rajesh, over to you. Why don't you let us know a little bit about your journey? What?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Firstly, thank you so much. Thanks for having you. Great to be here. Yeah, briefly, I grew up in Coimbatore. I spent the first 21 years of my life in this small town in Tamil Nadu called Coimbatore, and did my school and then engineering there. That's what everyone did back then. If you didn't have the right marks or the interest in medicine, you ended up doing engineering, and that's obviously what I did as well. And from then I moved to Gurgaon for my MBA. I did a MBA from MBA Gurgaon. Massive culture shock to move from Coimbatore to Gurgaon, but that was fun, and that's really the time when I started thinking about a career in sports management. Did a lot of foundational stuff at MBI. I did a course of independent study in sports marketing, then started networking with a lot of people in the sports management industry. I attended conference and stuff, but until then, the only thing that I knew about sports business was Harsha Bogle. I knew this guy who's moved from a regular MBA to making a career in sports management. So my knowledge about sports management was limited to maybe working at ESPN Star Sports, which was ESPN Star back then. So,
Right.
But at MDI, I started networking and figured out what are the different possibilities within sports marketing are. But post MBA, I couldn't really land a job in sports. It was a tiny industry back then.
Right.
It probably is.
Still
right?
is in
yeah.
many ways.
Yeah. So I picked up the campus job. It was with Reliance. Reliance's entertainment business.
Mhm.
Worked with them for about 15 months. Obviously, didn't have a great time. So like 3-4 months into the job,
Obviously.
yeah, 3-4 months into the stint, I started again reaching out to people in the sports industry, and that's when I came across this really interesting business called Sports Consult, which was doing a combination of two things that I was really passionate about. One was brands and marketing, and the other was grassroots sports. So basically, Sports Consult was conceptualizing, grassroots sports events for big brands. I thought that was an interesting mix, and I pursued, kind of persisted. It was a very small setup back then. They were doing about 1 crore of business, so obviously couldn't afford someone who's coming from Reliance and a
Yes.
big pay package. So, but I was ready to take the hit. Maybe for younger listeners listening in, this is something that maybe is something they could also think about. I took a pay cut. I joined them at about 10% of what I was earning back then, because I knew that early on in my career, this is the space that I want to be in.
Yeah.
But things worked out. Spent 9 glorious years with them. Midway through that journey, got a private equity firm to invest in the company,
Wonderful.
and so let the business grew the business. Then obviously Sports Consult, kind of became Sports Village after merging with Edu Sports and then Coup Sports. And after about 9 years, I used to work with Red Bull as well, on the agency side while during my stint with Sports Consult. So there was an opening with Red Bull, and I thought maybe this is a good time to try something new. And that's when I joined Red Bull. At Red Bull, I'm part of the sports marketing team, handle sports events and gaming, esports events over there. It's been
Yeah.
a gaming has probably been the steepest learning curve for me at Red Bull. It's one huge, massive universe that I didn't know that it existed. So that's been great.
Yeah.
Yeah, about 4 years now. And yeah, that's about me. I play a lot of chess these days. When it
Nice.
comes to interest in sports, I watch English football and obviously cricket. It's about me.
Thank you so much, Rajesh, for
I
that.
got quite short and sweet. I couldn't manage that, Samkit.
No, that helps set the right context, right? So I mean, for those listening in, what we're trying to achieve today is hopefully get two very different flavors of the whole sales and marketing vertical that typically exists across a lot of sports and entertainment organizations. As you may have realized, Samkit comes from a very core selling background. I mean, we didn't have a lot of overlap at JSW, but you hang out with that guy for 30 minutes and you'll realize that he could sell you some stuff. So,
No,
so
I've only spent 3 minutes. Now I know he can.
there we go. There we go. And you on the other hand, with your first with the grassroots experience and now with Red Bull, who I mean I personally believe is one of its kind organization. I can't think of any other organization like Red Bull in the entire ecosystem of sports. So we're hoping to draw from these different experiences that the two of you have. Let's dive straight in with Samkit first. So Samkit, doing what you do, what would you say are some of the most key stakeholders in the sales line of work, right? When you're going out to, let's say, bring in brands for teams or be it for talents, what are some of those key stakeholder relationships, and what goes about in nurturing those relationships? If you can lend some insight into that aspect of your job function for the audience.
Sure. I mean, the key stakeholders in in any marketing or sales function would primarily be of course, your league owners. You'll have your league, your team owners.
Right.
You'll have the federations in certain aspects of things. So maybe your basketball, depending on the league that you're in.
Yeah.
And of course, the brands. And now we've got agencies in between, sport agencies that do a fantastic job in understanding the brand briefs and coming to asset holders like us to bridge the gap between what the objective of what the brands want versus what we have to offer, and then they bridge it, and basically the objectives of the brands are met, and so are the teams. From the team side of things, at least for me in sales, the what we who we reach out to, who we speak to a lot, are the chief marketing officers and the brand managers. The idea is to understand where and what part of the brand journey the particular brand is. Usually, I mean, more often than not, let's take IPL for an example. Literally every other brand wants to be a part of it, right? But what particular brand suits what particular team is something that you can do. You can get an insight from while speaking to your brand manager and the CEO. Building these relationships is it's an absolute must for people in the sales function. If you ask anyone in the sales industry, they would know pretty much every CMO in every vertical. When I say vertical, I mean in the banking industry or fintech, so on and so forth. The idea is to know at least the top 5 or top 10 CMOs and brand managers in those particular verticals, so that you understand what is happening in that particular industry. So, for instance, when the EdTech boom was happening, when Byju's came about, so we ensured to, we spoke to everyone from Vedantu, Byju's, QMath, so many others to understand, okay, what exactly is happening and where is the money being spent, in what sport the money is being spent, and what is the right fit with the assets we have. For example, at JSW, we had so many assets that cater to different strata of society. So IPL, of course, for everyone, and if you have 550 million people watch it, so it's for everyone. Kabaddi, Pro Kabaddi League would cater to a certain sector strata. Football would cater to a certain section of India. So to understand that brand, where is the presence of that brand, how are they, which is the strong market, what are they willing to spend the money on, is something that's very key, and that is something you understand only from having a conversations with these CMOs and brand managers.
Got it. And I remember you bringing this up when you were speaking earlier about the whole inbound traction versus where you have to actually go out there and become a nuisance almost to some point. That is very
pretty much the start of my career. I was a nuisance to many of the brand managers. So if you all are watching this, I apologize. But I have constantly called, I've constantly followed up. So as I said, with IPL, there's a lot of inbound traffic. Every brand wants to associate because it's India's biggest media property, right? Everyone watches it. As I said, about 550 million people watched it last year. So I mean, the sheer volume is really high as compared to a Pro Kabaddi or a badminton league or even ISL or even talent sales for that matter. You have to go out there and reach out to the brand managers and make them understand why it's a great property to associate with.
Yeah.
Therein is where you are actually selling, where you're actually talking to them and trying to tell them, okay, you know what, if you're, for example, in ISL, if your target markets are the Northeast or Kerala, Bagan and Kerala Plus are a great fit because majority of the viewership of ISL comes from Bengal and Kerala. So so I mean, there are different data points with which you're well armed. So before you reach out to your brand CMOs, to your brand managers, do your research. The basics are already there on the net. Honestly, if you just a simple search will give you so much data. It's uncanny what's out there on the internet. So a simple search before you talk to them, and they will give you key insights, and maybe then you can get back to them with specific tailor-made propositions.
Got it. I mean, just an interesting insight that I remember now from my time at an R&D company that I was working at. You mentioned about IPL, and our marketing folks there literally used to say that IPL is the new Diwali. Because पहले सब brands Diwali के time पे they used to run to grab whatever space they can grab, whatever eyeballs they can grab, but now IPL has literally become that. So I completely understand how different it must be when you're trying to sell something related to IPL vis-a-vis trying to sell something that doesn't have the IPL tag on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is, as I said, it is India's biggest media property. I think there was a campaign that was run by Sony, India Ka Naya Tyohar, if I'm not mistaken, it was Sony.
I remember something like
and
that.
it truly is. The number of eyeballs, the number of people, the number of social engagement that happened during the IPL is incredible. It is always, for those 2 months, IPL is always trending on Twitter, right? On the number one spot. And there is nothing else that you can watch because it's on your face 24/7.
Yeah.
So it is, and you see a lot of traction of brands, not just in the IPL space, but also on the talent side. For instance, majority of these cricketers will get a lot of key endorsements during the IPL,
right?
Because they know brands know that's when they're going to be relevant.
Yeah.
And they will spend their monies on their socials.
Very, very interesting insight. From that, let's jump to Rajesh now. So Rajesh, like I was saying, with Red Bull, and I want to focus on the Red Bull bit first. Because like I said, to my mind, it is probably one of the most unique organizations, in the sense of it's a sports drink company, it's a media company, it's a racing car company. So, there to many different people, Red Bull can mean different things. So as somebody like you, can you tell me from your lens what exactly, how do you see Red Bull placed in this entire ecosystem, and maybe talk a little bit about what the marketing function at Red Bull essentially is mandated with?
Yeah, I mean, Red Bull is as much a marketing organization as it's a beverage organization. And there is a lot of pride internally as well at Red Bull about the way we do marketing. So it's a lot about building brand love. I think that's where it all comes from. So if you look at the typical funnel, so the attempt first is to build brand love. People should fall in love with the brand first,
Yeah.
and then maybe we do even more things, trials, and trials at the right moments, and eventually build can love, right? So that's where the focus is, so we understand that, but ultimately it's a it's a beverage, right? So how do you influence someone to feel special while drinking that can of Red Bull? And
Yeah.
that's really the attempt, right? And it's a marketing powerhouse. I remember during my interview of just before I joined Red Bull, the marketing head back then was Avinash Pant. Avinash is someone who spent a lot of time at some of the biggest marketing organizations in the world, right? Disney and Coca-Cola, and then Nike,
Mhm.
some of the best in the world. And he told me something very interesting. He said, "Dude, I worked at all these organizations, and no one does marketing. No one gets marketing the way Red Bull does.
Mhm.
So it's all first principle thinking. Do consumers really care about this stuff? He used to say, let's have a very high bullshit filter. If our consumers, we think, are going to even feel that this is this bullshit, this is not really authentic to the fandom, let's not do it." So I know about projects that we have spent lakhs and lakhs of rupees just not being put out because we felt that it's not up to the mark. So you'd rather put out really good cool content and impress consumers with that, rather than put out 20 ordinary pieces, right? So less is more is always a philosophy. But yeah, I mean, focus is on at least the marketing folk. Our focus is on building a lot of brand love,
Yeah.
and then we leave it up to the sales guys to figure out how to get more and more people to drink the can. And again, even the marketing team at Red Bull is structured, I think, very differently from how a typical organization is structured.
Yeah.
There are specialists for each playground. For instance, I don't come from a marketing background, right? So I didn't have any brand marketing experience in the past. I had only worked with an agency, but I was the right fit for this role at Red Bull. So I came from a events background, and there was a sports events marketing opening, and that's where the companies saw me fit in. Otherwise, it's usually someone joining as a assistant brand manager, the
Yeah.
senior brand manager, whatever, right? So that's how a typical growth in the marketing function is within many organizations. So, at Red Bull, you have a specialist sports marketing team, you have a culture marketing team. It's identifying different interesting playgrounds and having specialists do those jobs. Yeah, so there are 5 different marketing functions broadly. So there is a brand marketing, which is they work on consumer insights, building ad campaigns. How is the brand seen visually across various platforms? That's brand marketing. You have the field marketing setup, which is, I think, a very interesting setup. No other brand has it, where we have student marketeers, student brand managers present in 250 colleges across the country. These are people who get Red Bull initiatives done within the college, and our primary target group is college students, right? So we
Yeah.
call them EPCs, entry point
Yeah,
consumers.
I think I remember this when I was in college. There were these Red Bull girls that you go around and
Yeah,
Girls
give
and
us
provide free
and
cans.
cans.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of them. So
and
Of course.
so I mean, just getting you to pause at this point, I've worked a lot with that team of yours in Odisha, and one
Uh-huh.
specific experience I would love to talk about is, so we did this stunt biking thing at KIT University in Bhubaneswar, and they
Right.
brought in a Red Bull athlete. Now
Aras Gibiza, was it? Aaron
it was
Colton
Daniel
or
Dhers. It was
Daniel Dares.
Daniel Dhers. Of course,
Yeah.
I know a lot about sports, yet I had never heard about who Daniel Dhers is. until fast forward a year later, I see that dude goes and wins the Olympic silver medal in that category. So that's the sort of and the show in itself, the way the whole production was done, the vibe around the actual 30-minute event, which eventually what it was. I think, I mean, as my role, which was with the government of Odisha to promote sport in the state, I think Red Bull was a very, very strong partner for us. We did a lot of other things with them as well. We partnered to do an esports FIFA tournament in the Kalinga Stadium. I mean, unfortunately, we couldn't set it up the way an esports arena happens, but we still did a half decent job of it. So I hear exactly what you're saying with regards to this field marketing bit being one of the flagship things that Red Bull brings to the fore. Yeah, over to you. Back to you.
Yeah. So, like I was saying, 18 to 24 is like a primary target group. Young people are easier to convince to try a new product than oldies like us. I think we made our choice like 10 years ago, and it's very difficult to get us to try anything new. So, we believe getting people young, and then if they like it, they stick with you for another 30, 40 years. So, all our focus is on entry point consumers, and they are largely in colleges. So through our sampling program, you just see these Red Bull girls handing out a can of Red Bull to you, but there is a lot of science behind it as well. When do you give it? How do you give it? So simple things like, unless they ask for it, you don't give it. Like, you offer them. If they want it, then you open up and give them, because the best taste is when the can is cool, right? So if the Red Bull is not very cool, it's not the right taste. So, and someone doesn't like the taste, they don't come back. So there's a lot of thinking behind that as well. Working with college students, not just for sampling, but also impressing them with the wide range of initiatives that we do in brands. So even when I look at national sports events, I look at how can I collegify them, right? How can I get these student brand managers, we call them student marketeers now, to take the property inside the college and run it themselves. So that's the field marketing team. I think it's really the pillar on new recruiting new consumers. And then obviously we have the Red Bull Media House, which puts out all the cool content that you would see on various channels. Focuses on how do you fascinate, how do you inspire the consumer, how do you grab the attention and also the emotion of consumers. That's where their focus is. And there is a culture marketing team which does music and dance projects. And of course, I'm part of the sports marketing team. Broadly, we look at sports marketing is athlete marketing, events marketing, and third party support. So within athlete marketing, like Samkit, we spoke about Gurpreet earlier. So we have multiple athletes. We have thousands of athletes across the world. Really the best at what they do. You spoke about Daniel Days. Yeah, we have a bunch
It's
of
quite diverse as well, right? From what you have in your athlete roster, from KL Rahul to CS Santosh to I think I'll have Manpreet Singh, if I'm not mistaken.
Manappa.
It's all very very diverse, I must say.
On that point though, Rajesh, you've got us at an
Yeah.
amazing point, right? So Samkit, you mentioned about trying to bring in brands for teams versus trying to bring in brands for talents, right? And at this
Yeah.
point, I guess the blue-eyed boy of Indian sport, cricket withstanding, would still be Neeraj Chopra, right? Arguably one of the best athletes to ever come out of India, if not the best athlete. And you
Absolutely.
were very extensively involved in sort of managing the whole commercial angle for Neeraj. So talk to us a little bit about that. What was that like? The curve, especially pre-Olympics, post-Olympics. Give us whatever
Yeah.
while making sure you can keep things confidential.
With Neeraj, it's there are two aspects: pre-Olympics, post-Olympics. I mean, there's a massive change. Pre-Olympics, while I mean he had achieved quite a bit pre-Olympics as well. He was the only Indian athlete after Milkha Singh to win the Commonwealth and the Asian gold back to back, which is quite a feat in athletics, which is quite a feat. And back then, there were a couple of brands that did support him. There was Amstrad, which is an AC company. There was ExxonMobil that had stuck by him even before the Olympics. And I think, yeah, they had Muscle Blaze they had signed him just before the Olympics. I remember going out to reaching out to brands left, right, and center, trying to tell them about this guy who's who we know as the next big thing. We always knew that. I mean, of course, it's eventually sport, but we always knew that he's someone who had a real good chance at getting a medal. Of course, gold was not something that we had dreamed of.
Yeah.
But the idea was that I remember we were selling Bajrang Punia, who was another gold medal potential, who was actually his. People said that he was a better contender to win the gold as compared to Neeraj.
Yeah.
And I remember pitching Neeraj Chopra to play like plethora of plans. And the biggest and the issue was that they wouldn't know who Neeraj was or know who Bajrang was. And that is something that selling talent does. Apart from cricket, if you're selling any other talent, it's an educational kind of thing as well, when you're educating the brand managers and the CMOs about what these guys are and what they can achieve. Majority of the times they don't know what tournaments they play in or what the sport is, for that matter. Like javelin wasn't, before he won the gold, there was javelin. Nobody knew what javelin was. And I have this interesting story as well, which I'll come to. So yeah, we used to go out to these brands, and his endorsement rates were within the range of 10 to 20 lakh rupees a day. Cut through 7th of August, where he won the gold, and it just rose 1000x in terms of his brand value. And one of the things was, I remember reaching out to a brand manager, very decent, very big size brand. I reached out to her and I was like, listen, this is the boy, Neeraj Chopra. He's good looking. He's polite, humble, aspirational, someone that you need to look out for.
Yeah.
At that point of time, they literally gave it up, and they were like, you know what, doesn't interest us. And I think they signed Hardik Pandya instead. And 8th of August, I got a text. I still have that text. I've screenshot that text saying that, hey, never taking your leaves lightly again. We need him now. How can we do it? Eventually, it couldn't happen because, the budgets didn't allow them to. But that message is something that I have on my phone, and I show it to people all the time that, hey, I was a part of this revolution. As far as Neeraj goes, he's and selling Neeraj, or no, I wouldn't say selling Neeraj, but going out to brands and talking about these about Neeraj Chopra now. He's very aspirational, right? And very he says the right things. He's never in the news for wrong reasons. Someone who has time and again showed that he's got a mature head on his young shoulders. He talks about even when the whole Arshad Nadeem and javelin thing happened, he came out, spoke about it right up, addressed the rumors, said that I don't want any political agenda being spoken about via me. That is something that is different. That is different pedigree. And just working with that athlete is a joy in itself. Sumit has met him a couple of times. He's very down to earth, very humble. And the same also comes across during these when we do these endorsements, right? So and in fact, he's someone who always says, hey, listen, let me speak to the brands before I endorse them. Let me understand what these guys are all about, and let's take a call whether I'm a good fit or not. So if you see his portfolio, till I left, his portfolio is very, it has a lot of MNCs, a lot of top brands, Gillette, that Byju's at that time was, Tata, AIA. He did a thing with David Beckham as well. So his portfolio was very diverse, but there were a lot of these top end brands. Usually what you would think was, okay, Neeraj Chopra, very massy, and his brands would be very, tier 2, tier 3, but that wasn't the case. His portfolio had about 15 or 16 brands which were top notch. And he himself was someone who would be like, hey, listen, I don't want to, I've just started off, which is something great about an athlete. I've just started off. I have a lot to achieve. So let's cap the number of brands that I do to 15. I don't want to give more than 20 days in a year or 25 days in a year for all these brand activities. I want to focus on javelin. Let me win the second gold, and then I have all the time in the world to do all these things. That mentality is just, it's fantastic. As someone who's 24 years old, he's 11 years younger to me. And to have such maturity in his head is incredible. And it's just been a fantastic journey throughout, to knowing him as a person and talking to brands about him. So and educating brands about what Neeraj Chopra was, and now he needs no introduction. So
the way you were talking about it, we could see how enjoyable that whole thing for you was, and I'm sure it was taxing at the best of times. But clearly you came out.
Oh yeah, as a sales guy, I remember, and anyone at JSW will tell you, after he won the gold, our phones did not stop ringing for 3 weeks. And it is a dream for anyone in sales that, okay, an athlete is It's that someone's calling you every single day trying to figure out how they can associate with the athlete.
Yeah.
It was possibly the best 3 weeks of my career. 100%. It really was.
Right.
Yeah.
Just to this piece, you talked about such very key aspects, right? Knowing your athlete, knowing your brand, educating the brand, like the pre-Olympics journey, right? Wherein you actually had to educate the brands about who he is, what he brings to the table, what could he potentially become, and all of that, right? I guess that homework piece, and it's funny the way you started off, right? You had a very key understanding of even what Neeraj did as a junior athlete, which is very important when you lay out that journey in front of a brand, right? कि बॉस ये किया है, कौन किया है, ये मिल्खा सिंह, automatically that connect, right? Because मिल्खा सिंह के बाद एक आदमी जिसने ये किया है is Neeraj. So thanks for that. I think you've laid out some very
Absolutely. I think it's something that, especially in talent, specifically for talent sales, it's very important to know exactly what your athlete has done. At JS, we had about 180 athletes in total, of which about 15 of them were Olympians, and majority of them, I mean, obviously about 50 of them, the whole team knew exactly what they've done and what they stand for. So it just wasn't like Neeraj Chopra, le lo. that wasn't the whole pitch. The whole pitch was, hey, this is what Neeraj Chopra does. This is why he's a good fit for your brand.
Yeah.
You know, and he is someone that if you sign him up before Olympics, he's someone who we see winning a medal. Before the Olympics, he's gonna be at, let's say, an X value. Post the Olympics, it's gonna be X
10x value,
multiples of
100x
X.
value.
So 1000x value, and yeah, that's how we went. And I think we did that with Muscle Blaze, and Muscle Blaze was one of the brands that listened to our pitch and did sign him up just before the Olympics at the value in the range that I spoke about. And then of course now the values have.
They definitely got a good deal, didn't they?
They did. Honestly, you can. Hindsight is 2020. If he didn't win, then they would be. It's easier to say that. Okay, that you should give credit to them. That's what I'm trying to say. To give credit to them. I think at one point of time, I think even Red Bull was associated with Ashwini. They still are, right? With Punappa?
They still are.
Ashwini
Ashwini is still
Punappa,
are, yeah. I'm glad that we were talking about Neeraj Chopra. You were giving me major FOMO, but yeah, I'm glad.
No, but so yeah, it's essential to, as I said, I'll come back to your point. It's essential to know what your brand, what your athlete stands for, and how your athlete can fit into the brand that you're pitching to. And it shouldn't. Sometimes all of us are guilty of force fitting it because you want something to go through. But you should try your level best to have the fit as natural as
right.
And I can give an example if you wish. I think the YouTube deal that happened with Neeraj was fantastic in the sense that when the YouTube guys came to, when we were chatting with them, and we just spoke to them about how Neeraj actually looked at his idol, who's Jan Zelezny, who's the world record holder. His videos on YouTube. He actually learned about, I wouldn't say the whole of technique came from there, but there was something there that he used to keep looking at and see how he's training, how he's throwing from YouTube.
Right.
And that was the connect that they built. So if you see the YouTube film, they've that they made on Neeraj Chopra, it made the connect very well. And that's why the campaign was very successful, because it gave in that direct association. It wasn't force fit.
Got it. Fast forward to Rajesh. Let's talk sports marketing lens from a sports drink point of view, right? Coca-Cola, Pepsi, we've all, especially when we were growing up, we've all seen the amazing advertisements and campaigns that they run around some pretty unique concepts. I still remember the advertisement before the Korea-Japan World Cup, wherein they got in all the sumo wrestlers and did like a very amazing campaign around football with some of the top players, right? But what I've seen with Red Bull is a fairly different lens on how to go about doing sports marketing, right? I personally am very well aware about the Neymar Junior 5s. I know about your BC1, and I know about something you used to do with Ashwini Punappa as well around badminton. So I believe Red Bull took a very, very different lens just from an outsider's perspective, right? They of course wanted to market themselves, but what they've also done is brought about a grassroots impact, for lack of a better word, through the initiatives that they've used to market. Talk to us a little bit about that element of Red Bull and how do you measure the impact of these sort of campaigns that you run year in, year out? I mean, I don't know. You've been running Neymar 5s for I don't know how long, but it's been a while if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So, I mean, just talking about that point, Neymar Juniors 5 started off as a project that Neymar really wanted to bring out. He runs this institute in Sao Paulo for underprivileged kids, really giving them world-class facilities, kind of an academy kind of a thing. So we were wondering, and Neymar has been a Red Bull athlete, was until some months ago. He was a Red Bull athlete. He's not anymore. So, we always, some kids spoke a lot about selling talent. At Red Bull, I think we really understand how to go about athlete marketing, right? The very fact that we have a dedicated resource and dedicated team for athlete marketing, just tells you how much we value that relationship. In fact, athletes are the only people at Red Bull who are allowed to carry the brand. So even the CEO of the company doesn't wear a Red Bull branded cap. It's only a KL Rahul or a Ashwini Ponnappa or a Manpreet Singh or a Gurpreet who's allowed to wear the cap. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, we can't wear the logo. We can't speak about the brand. There is no spokesperson culture. It's only the athletes who are allowed to talk about the brand. So yeah, we really value that. But it's always, the starting point always is, does the athlete really drink Red Bull? If it is not the case, if someone doesn't believe in the product or the brand, or if it is not part of their training routine, then it's a non-starter. So that's how relationships fizzle, right? Some kids spoke about force fitting athletes to certain brands, unless a brand. So if you look at the athlete marketing framework, how do you recruit athletes? One of the first questions is, does he drink Red Bull? Does he or she drink Red Bull? Or have you reached out, or has the athlete reached out to you? More often than not, if the athlete reaches out to us, then the deal goes through. If we reach out to the athlete, then at some point we believe that this is going to be a commercial relationship and not really a mutually beneficial relationship, and we end up not picking up the athlete.
Just gave me an idea. I'm going to ask all my athletes to reach out to you now. I won't reach out. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah, make them drink Red Bull, and if they believe the brand helps, the product helps, then of course we can stop. Anyway, so and it's not just about getting them to represent the brand in commercials, right? So we end up doing projects with them. So Red Bull's, the famous slogan or tagline is Red Bull gives you wings, right? So giving wings really is giving wings to ideas and people. So we, the story goes that the Red Bull team, the athlete manager who used to work with Neymar, asked about what he really, what is his dream, and he spoke about this institute and how he wants people from across the world to kind of tap into the facilities that he's built. So that's how the Neymar Juniors 5 idea was born. It's a really interesting concept where it's a 5v5 concept, and when team A scores a goal, team B loses a player. So you're also
well aware. I'm the finalist of the Bhubaneswar leg, bro. So
wow.
Soft flexing there.
Yeah, very nice. So the idea there is twofold, right? So one, we already want to be in playgrounds where our consumers are, right? So if we know in India, small format football is really the ACCA kind of playground. People don't really play 11-a-side football as much as they do short format football. So we were looking at short format football, and Neymar is all about trickery and quick, fast pace stuff. So these games get over really quickly. As soon as the team scores the first two goals, then it's a few minutes done. So it's a very different take on football. We always think, how can you give the Red Bull twist to a concept? So that's how the idea was born. So one, how do you get the message out that Neymar is a Red Bull athlete very effectively, and also engage with the football playing community? That's a very interesting playground. And sports is natural to Red Bull, right? So it's an energy drink. The need for energy is very high, of course, when you played sport. And that's when people see the functionality of the product as well. When you're down and with
So, but I had a specific question there, right? Like, does Red Bull at an organization level also go into measuring what was the football centric ROI of a measure like this? I mean, I'm sure you measure the brand side of it. How much of your brand was built on the back of something like this? I'm sure you measure that. But is there also metrics around the sporting impact of something like this that you guys look at? I've always been curious
Yeah,
about that.
no, we do those trends and perception survey. It's not as detailed as I would wish it to be.
Oh,
For instance, I mean, I would have exactly the kind of questions that you have, go into the depths of knowing how much each initiative made an impact. But we don't get that. We largely get, it's a product that is relevant for the sports occasion, or I got to know about Red Bull through sports events, or I got to know about Red Bull,
right.
or my love for Red Bull grew because I was exposed to so and so sports content piece. So it's a survey basis. Those top level associations with different playgrounds are not really into specifics. Yeah.
Got it. So I have a question. Sorry, Rajesh. So if there is, let's say there's someone who's listening in and is a part of the whole, is part of the sales team at, let's say at XYZ
Need that.
place,
Yeah.
and he wants to basically pitch, let's say a football team, right? Let's say he wants to pitch an ISL team, Punjab, for example, to Red Bull. What are the key things that you look at for an association? Like what is it that excites you guys in a way that, okay, you know what, this is something that we look into. Of course, the commercial bit and everything kept aside. We are assuming that Red Bull has the commercials, and or the football club is okay to do it as a barter, right? So let's leave that aside. What is it that you look at specifically let's say to make the thing work?
Yeah. So Red Bull believes a lot in ownability and um, attribution back to the brand, right? So that's the challenge when it comes to third party associations. That's why you wouldn't see Red Bull sponsoring too many teams. In a Formula One, for instance, we've ended up owning a team. Even in football, right? We have our own teams in RB Leipzig, Red Bull Salzburg. We have a team in New York, in Brazil. So that's when the consumer really thinks that Red Bull has made this impact on the players or on the team. If you're just a partner, then there is inherent mistrust. People have seen this space for about 30-40 years now, and I believe they've kind of there isn't any trust in a sponsor contributing to the sportive performance of the team or player that they support. Right, the classic reason for sponsorship triangle where the sports asset is here, the consumer is here, and the brand is here. The reason why you sponsor a sports asset is because this fan will fall in love with your brand. I don't think that's happening any longer unless there is a proper sportive impact that you make on the team. At
Right.
least that's what we believe here at Red Bull. So even at Rajasthan Royals, we spoke about our partnership before we started this chat. It's not just about jersey partnership, right? So we know that we are possibly getting exposed to those millions of consumers, but do those fans really think that Red Bull has made an impact on the performance of Rajasthan Royals, which is the message that we really care about, right? Yeah. So then now we have an athlete performance center in Europe. So how can we get some of these players to try and train there, improve their some of make that 1% improvement in performance. That's where we are gunning for. But having said that, coming back to your question, it's not logo exposure. I'm not going to be looking at the media outcomes. In fact, we actively tell our partners, don't put our logos anywhere. We don't want to see our logos in any third party platforms. It only has to be in Red Bull owned platforms. Our wish list would be, can you showcase credible can consumption? Are your players going to drink Red Bull? I will sit with the coach first. I'll sit with the dietitian. I'll ask them, would you mind if your players drink Red Bull? Because we are starting at that point. It's not that coaches are actively offering cans of Red Bull to all these players, right? In fact, you see coaches stopping because there is misunderstanding about the product. People think stuff that I cannot talk about goes into the Red Bull can. So we work with the dietitians, the coaches, and check if they're going to be stopping players from consuming cans of Red Bull. So cans consumption is fundamental. If they're going to do that, then what are the next set of opportunities, right? So can I have a presence in the dugout? Can they drink Red Bull?
So logo
Midway,
exposure apart from that, but certain activations is key, right? I think with Rajasthan
100%.
Royals, you all did the cricket cut ticket, I think it was called.
So we didn't
So
do
that
cricket
had
ticket. We do something called Red Bull Speedster with Rajasthan
Speedster,
Royals.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So Red Bull Speedster is
And
really
that
a
is of
platform.
that is of certain value to the
100%.
brand,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So
Very activation based.
yeah, very, and also content, right? So the jersey reveal piece, it's possibly the most talked about piece for Rajasthan Royals, and it's not even something that came from them, right?
I think I'll come in here and just say a particular thing. Like one thing about but at least I feel that brands, what we try to educate the brand managers is about. One thing is you have these particular list of deliverables that you have access to, but to understand and how to use the deliverables is key.
Yeah.
Right. So, for example, if you have access to, let's say you've got take IPL for an example, you have access to, if you're a jersey sponsor, you'll have access to a minimum of 3 players for a particular shoot for a particular time. Now Red Bull uses it in the right way by doing this particular gimmick where someone jumped from the thing and there was a jersey reveal. That's a nice way to do it, as compared to just getting someone making, for in my case we own Lucknow Super Giants, so making KL Rahul just stand there and say, oh yeah, all CTAs, so call to actions. I think that is not the right way. The key is also to make the brand managers or CMOs understand that yes, you have these rights and what are the possibilities and how to use these rights. It's not just a simple KL Rahul mila to kuch bhi bolega. You can do something innovative. There's a lot out there that can be done, which I feel
Absolutely.
Red Bull does in the right way. So
I think there was some really, really good insight, Rajesh, on how Red Bull goes about thinking about it. I'm sure Samkit has walked away with some very interesting insights himself from what Rajesh had to say. Well, last two questions from my end, and then we'll open it up for some questions from the people who are on the call right now. Since what we're trying to do here is, get people who want to become a part of the sports industry to understand a little bit more about what the job actually entails, and we've actually covered a lot of layers of that over the course of this conversation already. But Samkit, to you, if I had to say that, perhaps not at the level at which you are right now, but let's say when you were starting off, or in the initial days of your sales journey, what does a typical day or a typical week for that matter, or maybe that very crucial period before you need to close deals, what does that look like, so that people can get a flavor of that it's not all sunshines and rainbows, as Rocky Balboa likes to say?
So it's basically very seasonal in the sense that so IPL basically starts, let's say, in March. So as a sales guy for any particular team, you have to sell all these assets a month before. So life becomes very hectic, two or three, because you need at least 3 months to sell all those assets. It typically is used figuring out what particular asset needs to be sold, and what are the kind of brands that you would want to hit out to, in which category, to which will be able to either one, A, afford, number two is fit in the right segment. For instance, your front of jersey for an IPL team goes anywhere between 15 to 30 crores. That's the range across all the top 10 teams. Now, that not every brand will have the budget to go so high. So you will basically figure out which particular brands you want to hit out to, and then start. If you're starting out, you start cold calling literally everyone top down. So you use the various different tools that are available right now, and to get numbers right now is quite easy, in my opinion, of anyone that's out there. And numbers and email address, it's very easy as compared to when we started off. You start top down, you start writing to the CEOs, COOs, CMOs, anyone that is a decision maker. And you had, I mean, for lack of a better word, you harass them. Like you basically you call them and you try and build a relationship there, right? See, that the thing is, they also have not just the team owners, the team asset holders, the sales team of the asset holders, but also the agencies reaching out to them.
Yeah.
Right. So they do get a lot of calls. They do get a lot of people pitching various different stuff to them. Not just the IPL. There's so many other things out there. So there's a big possibility that they would basically be like apini. So you then figure out one bottom till you reach the right decision maker.
Right.
The idea here is to get them to get. Now you can do virtual things. Before COVID, you couldn't even do that.
Yeah.
The idea was to get a meeting. The idea was to put your proposition across to them. But do that in the right way. Once you have their attention, do not waste that opportunity. Do not just send them a basic deck that just, that's very easy to do.
Yeah.
And I have been also, back when I was started, I've also done that, where you're just like, just like, ye bhej deta hu, then you
Not
figure
tailor
these-
making it to them. Everybody has fallen prey.
yeah, try and tailor make it. Try and tailor make it. Try and figure out what the brand stands for, what they want, what they've done in the past, right? Majority of the brands would have had some sporting partnerships or the other in the past. What they've done, how they've activated it, is something that's key to understand. And then tailor make a proposal and send it out to them. So yeah, pretty much my week would be first 2 hours of the day. I would definitely make calls, because back then it was my thinking. Maybe it's not the right one. I don't know, but I was always be like, the brand managers will have time during the, like in the first 2 hours, and then they would probably get into their day-to-day routine. So the first 2 hours I would call them and try, and it was successful for me. I would get more or better responses in the first 2 hours.
Interesting.
Then I would get into making presentations, and then again in the evening start making phone calls between 3 to 5. That was pretty much it. When I was starting out, that was pretty much it. As and when you grow, you'll get more into strategy. You'll figure out, okay, you know what, these are the brands we should reach out to. This is what we should do with these brands.
Yeah.
This is how it'll impact our particular team, and how getting this brand on board will not only help us as a team in terms of the revenue generated, but also building the brand value. So as you grow older, older into the system, you'll figure out, how to spend your time. But initially, it's going to be, especially in sales, just reaching out to people and trying to get their attention, and going for meetings.
Right. And then, of course, it gets glamorous every once in a while if a Neeraj Chopra comes your way, doesn't it?
If a Neeraj Chopra comes your way, it becomes easier. I wouldn't lie, it became easier, but there were a lot of hours spent before Neeraj Chopra was Neeraj Chopra, wherein just talking to people, and when you said Neeraj Chopra, they'll be like, "Con," and then you have to go through the whole. It gets repetitive. It definitely gets repetitive, but it has to be done to succeed. It's genuinely a numbers game. That's what I keep telling my teammates. For every 100 people you reach out to, maybe 10% of that will give you a meeting, and 10% of that will convert. So it's in a week at JSW, in a week we would talk to about 70 to 75 different people.
Wow.
We would try to talk to 70 to 75.
No, thanks for that. I think that lays it out very well, that it's a lot of hard work and a lot of rejection that you have to go through to get to those.
By the end of it, you'll develop a thick skin. So,
man, it's incredible. It was like I was listening to myself. That's exactly what my journey with Sports Consult has been. It's again the very same words that I tell people. If you reach out to 100 people, you're going to convert one, right? So it's volume of effort is definitely the most important thing when it comes to sales, of course.
Yeah.
And I definitely went on a trip down memory lane. You took me through one. That was essentially what I did at Sports Consult as well. Starting out 10 years ago, or what? It's 12 years ago, yeah. And it's essentially the same. At least when you have a Neeraj Chopra, you don't have too much warming up, to do with the clients. But I was selling grassroots sports, man. So I really have to tell them what is going to happen to the brand. How are they really going to benefit?
Yeah.
Why should they really care about this meeting? So for a few months, maybe even years, I used to get frustrated about, why are these people sitting at Red Bull not responding to my emails?
It's so funny. So the last question that I actually had for you was along these lines itself, right? Like, you've been on both sides. You had to ask for money, and now you're in a position where you can actually spend money or deploy money, right? And I'd be very curious to understand. Maybe you've done this introspection, maybe you haven't. So I'm gonna put you on the spot here. Like, having dabbled on both sides of the table, do you feel there's a gap? When I was selling, I was going about it so in such a wrong way that now that I'm on the other side, I realized had I done it this way, it would have been much easier. Go ahead.
100%.
Talk through your thoughts on
Firstly, I'm very sympathetic to people that reach out. Having spent 9 years doing that work, I try to not ignore any of the emails or phone calls. I obviously reply to as many as possible. I think I do I would like to believe I reply to every single email.
Mhm.
But yeah, so it's often I also try and give a explanation on why it is not interesting to us, so that they come back to the next time they reach out. It's something that is sharper, meets the requirements
Yeah.
of the brand.
Yeah.
You know, but sports in general is of interest to Red Bull. And mostly because I handle sports marketing, people reach out to me with sports concepts or sports events.
Hmm.
So immediately there is if we can't spend money, we at least offer product. If it's an athlete, definitely, if consuming Red Bull helps you, I'm happy to send over product to you. That's the least you could do. And again, same with events. Red Bull supports events. We support over 500 events across the country with our product, and also tools. We have these interesting, sexy looking umbrellas, tents, which the archers, which instantly add glamour to the event. Small event organizers especially love it, that a brand like Red Bull is present. So we end up, and I don't have to spend too much money on that. I get access to a lot of new consumers through that. So we end up supporting some of the smaller ones. The difficult ones are the bigger topics where commercials are involved. But that's obviously, it's also disproportionate in terms of returns. So we do end up spending a lot of time deliberating on it, because we believe we are also experts. We already come with a certain take on a certain athlete or a sport or a team. So that plays a big part in choosing to associate with. I think what is missing essentially would be what Sanket spoke about later on. How do you go with the right, integrations for a brand? Really understand what the brand does, what has worked for them, and go with thoughts on how they will really benefit. I think when I started out, right, my very first project with Sports Consult was with this big FMCG company who was launching a new sports energy drink, strangely. So, but the brand manager, during my question, forget about asking who's Neeraj Chopra, knowing about his achievements or even the sport. This brand manager asked me, how many players are there in a football team? How many people are there on a field? So
Interesting.
yeah, no exaggeration. So that's how, they could be big people. I mean, brand managers coming from fancy backgrounds, but they may not know sports, right? So education,
Yep. Yep.
talking about the sport, the consumer, the sports fan, how can sports play a part? Is People are so passionate about sports, and how can you tap into that passion?
Right.
So that's something that everyone, when they reach out to agencies, when they reach out to brands, how does the brand really benefit? How can you go with the right
Yeah.
integrations so that conversations become
I think
easier? I
something
think
you
that
alluded to in one of your earlier answers was first principles, right? And consultants use that a lot. Management consultants from the best of firms use that a lot. And it's so simplistic yet so underused. I say it to everybody that I've ever worked with. There, just go with first principles, and you'll at least get 80% of the way there. And then you may
yeah,
miss out on that 20% of value, but at least you'll get 80% of the way
Yeah.
there. So,
absolutely,
and I think that's what you're referring to, right? Like, do the basics. These are the things
100%.
that they're looking forward to. Just give them that at least, and then take it from there.
Yeah.
Great point. Thank you so much for that. At this point, I'm just gonna ask if there are anybody on the call has any questions for Samkit or Rajesh based on whatever you may have heard. Anyone?
Yeah, yeah, I have a question.
Please, please.
Yeah, I just introduced myself. I'm Colonel Naren. I'm looking after the Army Marksman Unit. We train the shooters. We have 2 Olympic medals, Colonel Rathore and Vijay Kumar in 2012.
Oh, very nice.
Wonderful.
So again, I'm part of the ASTS cohort. In fact, the JSW speakers were there last week.
Just a couple of days ago, right?
Yeah. Devanshu and
We
Himanshu,
amazing.
yeah.
we couldn't
Yeah,
stop
yeah.
hearing about how awesome they were. So yeah, we know.
Yeah, it was very beautiful, very good session, both sides, and a lot of understanding, a lot of learning. So I have 2 questions here. Let's say if Milkha Singh was alive today as an athlete, let's say his performance you pick up in 2023. Okay. So as a marketing, how do you feel? Someone who excelled everywhere, broke a world record, started a new generation, except not winning the Olympic medal. Okay. So how do you see him as an athlete today? Why I'm saying is, just compare him to a shooter I know. He's Khel Ratna awardee, Jitu Rai. He was former world number 1, a strong prospect for 2016. just 2 World Cups before 2016 Rio Olympics, gold medal, Asian gold, Commonwealth gold, everything. You know, if you see 2016 Khel Ratna awardees, it's PV Sindhu, Deepak Karmakar, Sakshi Malik, and Jitu Rai. Padma Shri. So I'm just saying cricket, football versus an athlete who participates once in 4 years, like Neeraj Chopra. So let's say someone who's all his life gave for the sport, but somehow couldn't get the Olympic medal. So how do you look at it? Because all of us, while we associate with the sport, half of us we become half sportsmen, because we go through the motions when you meet the parents and you see the journey. You get so emotional with them in the sport. So Jitu is with us. So every day, because I was here in AMU for 3 years, from 14 to 17. I was there for the Brazil Olympic cycle. Now I'm heading Europe now. So we have put him in AISTS cohort. I told him you'll become the world's best coach. You'll coach and go and coach the German team and the Korean team. And then you'll come back to India. India will realize your potential once you go outside and come back. So now my question here is, if Milkha Singh was here today, how do you want to develop the brand? If Tanvir has not got the Olympic medal, but made his point well. The second question is, in the case of Neeraj, is there a case in point that we also portray the coach of Neeraj, like Sachin Tendulkar's coach, who was there in his childhood, was also came to limelight. If Neeraj Chopra, somewhere in endorsements, I'm not talking about just the media, will it work, because the ecosystem will grow slowly. It's not only the athlete support staff, more people will volunteer to create 10 Neeraj Chopra than if one Neeraj Chopra, if you look at the grassroots level, the continuity of investment in time and energy will be more because the limelight is also. So I have two questions. It's open for error.
Samkit, you want to take a stab at it first, and I'm sure Rajesh will have his own thoughts as well.
Sure. So my memory is of goldfish. So I think I'll answer the second part first because that's fresh in my mind. So if I understand correctly, your question was the support staff of Neeraj Chopra. They should be more involved in the commercial partnerships of Neeraj. Is that the question? Is that
yeah? I mean, in some way, if they can get a portion of endorsements, not like the aim is not to make money, but also to, like, if you see IPL, you know that Nikhil Bhai is the physio of the men's team. He's a known figure. There are the cricket has that advantage vis-a-vis the other sports. So if you have a golden boy, can we have a golden staff?
Right. So, I mean, I will actually come back to his endorsement with Under Armour. It's an endorsement that was cracked right after the Olympics. So if you notice right now, Under Armour is, so the Neeraj's whole team, when I say whole team, his physio, which is Ishan, and his current coach, Klaus, they are kitted in Under Armour, from top to bottom. Under Armour ensures that not only Neeraj, but even his support staff, which is very key. In fact, Neeraj himself has said that, him winning a medal, they also have had a big part. Neeraj himself has come out and said it. So Under Armour does get them up. Coming to your point, whether they should be a part of the whole commercial, endorsement kind of a thing, it's in an ideal scenario, in an ideal world, yes, but I don't see any of the brands. So eventually, the brands that are spending money, they also want the ROI, right? It's not like they're spending money out of their. I mean, yes, they want to support the athlete in some way or form, but eventually, it all comes down to the return on investment that they're going to make. So the YouTube film that was made on Neeraj, it has a little bit of an aspect on Neeraj's coach, about Neeraj's coach and what he had done for him while growing up, but it wasn't commercially linked, and the chances of that happening is minimal, unless there is a specific. So coming to that, Enazal used to be, there still is a brand. They used to have a campaign called as, so during Teachers Day, they would change it to Happy Coaches Day, right? Wherein they would recognize all the coaches of India and give them certain, goodies or monetary. I mean, depending on what their campaign is. I don't know if it's still running till today, but they used to run it. So from a brand perspective, unless it's campaign driven, then yes, it makes sense. But for each and every of association of Neeraj Chopra, I don't think it's a possibility. It's very tough, to be honest.
Yeah.
And your first part of the question was, if Milkha Singh were alive today, would
Essentially,
he how
if think of Milkha Singh in today's day and age, what
Right.
sort of a brand building could you do around somebody like a Milkha Singh who perhaps hasn't gone on to win the Olympic gold, but still did a lot of firsts in many ways?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a great question, Naren. And we think about it all the time, okay, past athletes, if they were alive today, man, we would have done this, you would have done that. And uh, okay, firstly, the kind of exposure that these Olympic athletes have now, purely because of the broadcast, is huge, right? So when the Olympics happened this year, it happened at a favorable time more often than not. Neeraj won his goal at 4:30 p.m. So, and at that time it was a Saturday at 4:30 p.m. So everyone was tuned in. If it was like a Mirabai Chanu who won her silver, the first medal we got was a Mirabai Chanu, but it was at 5 a.m. in the morning. So that is something that I watched it, but people missed out because right? That being said, the exposure during the Olympics was incredible. The generally, if you see any other athletic events, it's usually they cut between things. So, for example, 400 meters chal raha hai, you're watching it, then suddenly it'll cut to javelin, then it'll cut to long jump. But during the Olympics, Tokyo Olympics, Neeraj's each and every throw was shown. So broadcast makes a big difference, right? So the understanding of people of who Milkha Singh was now would have been an absolute game changer. Okay. Like for example, Neeraj recently won, or Nikhat Zareen. When Neeraj, I'm talking about, chalo, unke paas the gold hai.
Yeah.
Nikhat Zareen pakad lo, right? Nikhat Zareen hasn't won the Olympic gold, but she's a well-known athlete today. She's got a plethora of brands. She's got like 5, 6, or 7 brands under her belt, and she's a world champion in boxing. She is someone who we are keenly looking at for the Paris Olympics in 24. But she hasn't won. She in fact didn't even go to the Olympics last year, right? Mary Kom went in her. I mean, the same category. So Mary Kom went. So I believe that if Milkha Singh was alive today, definitely there would be more chatter around him. The one brand that comes directly in my mind right now is Zepto. They did a very cool campaign with Jasprit Bumrah, which said fast to fast hota hai, but it's not Jasprit fast, right? It's an immediate link, especially now with this D2C deliveries being so like 10 minutes. By the end of the day, if you think about it, it'll just come, right? It's moving to that particular era. So I think that is one brand I would definitely go out to, saying that, hey, I mean, you've got the fastest Indian man out here. He is a prolific. I mean, he's recently won the. I'm going to assume that he won the recent 2020 wala Asian and Commonwealth gold, and he is the next big thing for the upcoming Olympics. So why don't you look at him? There'll be like a different way to build it up, but yes, definitely there'll be more and more brands will be looking into it. 100%.
Right.
It's just that it was in an era where broadcast wasn't, as big. Though, in fact, majority of all of us know about Milkha Singh via the movie Bhag Milkha Bhag, as compared to, it's
I
it's
was
the
about
unfortunate.
to say, based on whatever we've seen from that movie, Samkit, I think he would be just as combustible a personality as Neeraj is, right?
Absolutely, and the advantage. See, majority of the Olympians, right? They don't. I mean, they come from tier 3, tier 4. They don't talk in English. They're not very proficient in English, so that becomes a barrier. And Neeraj Chopra has taken it in his stride by being. He just did a thing with stage where he was like, I'm going to talk in Haryanvi. It is my language.
Messi थोड़ी
But
बात करता है.
many of them are shy of talking in English, and Milkha Singh ji was like fluent in English. That would have played in his favor, in my opinion, right? For the kind of brands that he would attract at this point of time.
Red
So
Bull would
that's
have totally lapped up.
Red Bull
Sorry?
would have totally lapped him up.
Yeah, Red Bull have, I mean, we speak about athletes. Do they have the Red Bull personality? Are they trendsetters? Are they the world's or the country's best? I think all of these boxes are ticked. In Milkha Singh's case, and I'm sure if you are around, Red Bull will have definitely tried to.
Absolutely, and it's athletics, right? It's the most
I
premium
have
sport in
something
the
to
whole world.
add. If I was a brand manager, I wouldn't take brands for him. I would create his brand. Footwear, clothing, affordable. Just get everyone moving. I would have the world wear his brand. I know it would take a lot, but I would resist, any kind of request from brands. I would blow it out of proportion to say, these people want him, those people want him, and then insist that I create a brand. Of course, we need a lot of money for that.
Yeah.
So I'd look for investors. I would see him as a startup of his own. Milkha is the brand. I don't know, crazy idea, but understanding where he comes from, what he's been through, and how he's shown. Yeah.
I can assure you that's exactly how everyone's thinking about their best talents. I can assure you. It's like you said, it's a little difficult to do it, but I can assure you everybody who's got these really, really hot properties in the form of talents are thinking about it in those lines. It's about who's able to
Absolutely.
do it.
And just to
Awesome.
answer your question, I think well, every like especially for merchandise, I think the only guys who've cracked it is 1-8 with Virat Kohli.
With Virat.
I mean, it's a very difficult market to crack. Plenty of athletes have come out with their own line. I think KL Rahul came with Wonder, with Puma. There are other examples as well. But cracking a licensing deal, especially in India on clothing, it's a graveyard. There are plenty of failed ventures. However,
Even
that being
MS
said,
Dhoni
of
couldn't do
course, sorry,
Even MS Dhoni couldn't kind of make it
correct,
work.
correct.
It's
So
a big, massive challenge.
it's it has to. Also,
But
Sanjana, there are
somewhere, sorry, I was saying, don't you think that's because they would have already kind of like been sponsored and they're already speaking for brands? Because when you have someone like a Milkha Singh, you don't have to bother about proof of concept, MVP. Because somewhere I think the moment you lend a name to something, and now for people to associate themselves with your own brand, they have to make that shift. And consumers are lazy, aren't they? They want something nice, but to have to shift from that to this, I mean, it would take a lot of effort for me to move from something I'm used to as the support, and that's why I use it or consume it, to what now they no longer wear a Nike, but now they have their own, the Milkha brand. And now will have to move to the Milkha brand, for example. I don't know how to put it in proper words, but yeah.
No, I get it. I think I understand that where you're coming from. Also, but I mean, I think it's a business call. The distribution that the likes of Puma, Under Armour, Nike, etc. hold is not something that someone who's just starting straight up will have. So for any athlete, they will have to associate with a particular brand. So, for example, 1-8 is with Puma, right? So to have that distribution is something that only the Pumas, Niveas, Nikes, Adidas of the world will have it. And for any
Okay.
athlete to build that distribution network from scratch, I mean, it's very difficult, right? And he'll have to be in that business to build it up.
Thank,
So that's the
thank you.
reason
I
why
didn't
licensing
think
deal is
along
something
those
that
lines.
works.
Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fine.
Virat
So
Kohli's
that-
case, I mean, talking about 1-8, right? So Virat also had the opportunity to continue as a Red Bull athlete or launch his own energy drink brand. He, Ocean 1-8 is an energy drink, but it
Yeah.
hasn't done so well, right? Would he have made more money probably being a Red Bull athlete compared to being a small minority owner in a energy drink brand, which is also doing much less sales compared to this massive energy drink? That's really the question. And like some kids said, it's not easy. So obviously, if there is an opportunity, um, then yeah, like 1-8 with Puma, maybe those are low hanging opportunities, but you cannot say to every single endorsement opportunity.
And
You will
not
not be able
everything
to build.
succeeds, right, Rajesh? Not
Yeah.
everything succeeds. So it's a lot of it's you go back into the same cycle of the VC money coming in and trying to capitalize on some of these proven brands. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the restaurant brand, for example, that Virat is putting out, right? And
Yeah.
how that plays out over the next couple of years. So I mean,
Yeah.
you've got a brand to pull it on the back of, but at the end of the day, it needs to be a good business. And that's what's going to make the difference. At least that's what I think about it. Okay. We've got time for one more question before our guests will have to call it a day. Anybody else got any questions?
I had one question.
Yes, please.
You spoke about Neeraj Chopra possibly being India's biggest ever athlete in earlier topic, Sumit.
Yeah.
My question is, I mean, I would like to believe, I'm a huge chess fan, so I tell all my friends that Vishwanathan Anand is the greatest sports person India has ever produced. So what is Samkit and Samkit's take on this? I already know what your choice is, Sumit.
No. I mean, see, I genuinely, when you say the greatest athletes, we talk about world class athletes, and I of course, Olympic sports is something that I follow, so I have a bias towards it. So I'm always going to be, looking at the likes of Nikhat Zareen, Neeraj Chopra, Manu Bakar, for example, who are, competing with the world's best consistently and basically raising the Indian flag. That being said, the chess has been a recent phenomenon. I think the Mahindra Chess League also has done phenomenally well. It's up and coming. In fact, I remember I had an interaction with Vishwanathan Anand during the recent Sports Aces Awards. I mean, it blew my mind, right? Like, it's just the level of detail that he talks with. You're just like, wow. And now with the brother sister duo, Pragananda, I mean, I don't know, Pragananda and his sister.
Yeah.
I think they are Pragyananda and his sister. I'm sorry. Uh, they are killing it. I really hope it's not about which athlete is bigger. I wish that every athlete has the same recognition across. Doesn't have to be only cricket. Doesn't have to be only Neeraj. It has to be everyone.
Of course.
In boxing, wrestling, it just has to be. India as a whole, comes together and supports everything. So that is the. I don't want Sunil Shetty to come out and make that video. Okay, I'll come
Again.
watch me play. I mean, that was.
Yeah.
That's not something that I want, right? And the idea is for everyone to go out and support, whether it's the women's team, whether it's the men's team, whether it's chess, whether it's football. Yeah, go out and do it.
Completely.
But yeah, for me, it's still
I completely resonate with something there. Although I'll just add a little bit of more context to where I was coming from when I said that I believe Neeraj genuinely is one of the best athletes to ever come out of this country, right? It's about taking into account what the status quo for that particular thing was and where he's been able to take it. One of the biggest, I was recently watching the World Athletics Championships, and the confidence I saw in our athletics contingent. The guys who are running the 400 meters, the guy who are doing the long jumps, the confidence I saw in them because of what Neeraj had been able to achieve in their discipline or in their category of sport was mind-blowing to my mind, right? And
Absolutely.
I have tremendous respect and love for Vishy, and I think he's probably one of the best out there, right? But inherently, intelligence is something where Indians do all right in general, right? which is why we see a lot of really, really good chess players coming out now from India. And like what this young dude that Samkit was trying to pronounce the name of, what he's done to some of these grandmasters is just I mean, for lack of a better word, humiliating to them at some level. Right? But with Neeraj, what his impact on these other athletes, and some of them are just openly talking about it. Like, we've seen Neeraj Bhaiya do it, so now we believe we can also do it, right? I think the impact of what Neeraj has been able to achieve in a sport that really nobody gave us a chance in. And we've never really done anything worth its salt in that particular sport, right? So that's why I feel that what Neeraj has been able to achieve is truly path breaking in many ways. Sort of why I also believe I'm a big fan of Sachin Tendulkar as well, right? He was a god in an otherwise full of mortals, so to speak.
Yeah, I think we can spend one full day on this.
I know, as
topic,
probably. Well, I mean, I'd like to conclude this session by saying it was an absolute pleasure having the two of you. Especially somebody for me as well who hasn't.
Sorry, Rishi has sent a text.
Oh.
Rishi, what is your question?
Is there a question?
Agilita Sports will target which sports celebrity? Are you talking about the Abhishek Ganguly led?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think it's a sports tech platform. I think it's too early to say what sports celebrity they will be targeting or what exactly. We don't know the product offering as yet. At least I don't know. Maybe I need to read up a bit more. But yeah, I mean, once we know we understand what the offering is, what the product is, I think we'll be able to delve more into it.
Pretty much the same thought. So yeah, sorry. Back to where I was. Samkit, Rajesh, it was an absolute pleasure chatting with you on this. I think I personally learned a lot, especially someone who's not done this work or has not been in this line of work, the work that you guys do. Especially what you do, Samkit. I've still done a little bit of where Rajesh is. So
Yeah,
for me personally, and hopefully to everybody who listens to this will give a very nice flavor of what the sports sponsorship sales and the sports marketing vertical entails. And to everyone listening, feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn, drop in any other questions that you may have on our LinkedIn page as well, and we'll be happy to answer it as and when we can. Thank you so much once more, Rajesh and Samkit.
Thank
Any
you.
parting thoughts?
Thanks for having us, man. Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for having us. It was a pleasure, Rajesh. Pleasure meeting you as well. But yeah, if anyone has any questions, I think I'm tagged on LinkedIn. Please do reach out to me, and yeah, maybe we can discuss more on sales and sponsorships.
Pleasure to be here as well. Thank you, Sumit. Thanks for this. Samkit, talk to you soon.
Thank
See
you, guys.
everyone.
Cheers, everyone. Bye.